Did William Blake hate reason? Was he just the poet of the imagination? Well, I think by reading his letters and his poetry, one can see that he was highly educated. He was a man capable of using logic and analysis, and the autodidact that he was able to immerse himself in an enormous amount of study in order to fashion the poet that was William Blake and the artist. But he argues that reason without imagination becomes limiting, and we see a recurrence of an idea of those fetters, those chains that man should shake off. The reasoning power in man is separated from imagination, he says in Jerusalem. Reason alone becomes trapped in what it already knows. And so Blake valued spiritual and artistic realities, and to discover those things, we had to go past reason alone. He writes in The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite, capitalizing that first letter, making it an important noun, infinite. A world that can be deduced by reason would be a finite world. It's a world that we can study. But Blake had this powerfully metaphysically aware mind that felt that there was underpinning reality, something deeper than just reality on the surface that we had to discover, and that was what the artist's purpose was. And that's why we get Blake talking so positively about the imagination. Imagination expands perception beyond habit. He talks about the need to create a system or be enslaved by another man's, to create a system of his own. And you can see that in the characters that he creates, the formative powers underlying creation, and how he personifies all those beings in his poetry. Blake values creative independence over passive conformity. This probably is the thing that I like the most about Blake, and in his time he was seen by many of his contemporaries as a great eccentric. He says it's important in the Auguries of Innocence to see a world in a grain of sand, to see a world in the merest grain of sand. So what I think he's saying there is that the creative faculty, imagination, can find brilliant, exciting things to say in the smallest of things. And often he plays with enormous concepts and sprawling systems, but he can also write these poetry that had the feeling and the character of the way a child might speak, or the sort of literature that a child might speak, but behind it, again, talking about those deeper spiritual realities. So he ends with, imagination reveals the infinite within the ordinary. So that is the call of the artist, to find those imaginative and creative things in the most ordinary situations. And Blake, living in London at that time, would have been surrounded by much that was ordinary, and it was his call to, armed as a poet, to find things, magnitudes within those everyday things. Blake argues that reason should serve imagination and not replace it. Together they allow us not only to understand reality, but to experience its full depth. So I want to end today's video on a message, and the message is, perhaps the world isn't lacking wonder, we've just forgotten how to look. And much of Blake's poetry is an attempt to rediscover that imagining that we all have very naturally as children in those games we used to play. And Blake is the poet that manages to embody that desire to return to that throughout his life. And no matter the social opprobrium he faced, we suspect that he did a very good job of it. Thank you.